Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. On this episode, Bob and Larry discuss the importance of morning routines and how to create highly effective habits in the morning that can help you start your day out right. We'll also answer another question from one of our listeners, and Bob will share a new technique called revision scissors that can help you be your best you. So sit back, relax, and get ready to live forever young.
Hello everyone, welcome to Live Forever Young Radio. I'm Bob, I'm here with Larry and Raleigh.
Hey guys.
And we're happy to talk about morning routines with you on this episode. And you know, there's a famous psychologist named Dr. Joe Dispenza, and we all know about Dr. Joe. We follow his teachings, and he says that the average person, when they wake up in the morning, they do the exact same thing that they did the day before. They're just kind of mulling through their morning without much intention. And he said that as a result, you tend to get the same things for your day over and over again. And instead, he encourages people to live from a vision of the future and use your morning purposefully. And if you're going to do the same routine every day, that's okay, but make sure it's very purposeful and something that you planned out. So Larry, if you wouldn't mind to start out, tell us some of the things you do for your morning routine and how you focus to make sure that you're not kind of living from the past, but instead living from a vision of the future.
Okay. It's actually very simple, but it's forming the habit. And that's the tough part that I had to realize that it takes 28 days minimum to form a habit. I was living it just like everybody else was living it. Some days if I went to bed not feeling so good, I brought that into the next morning. I got up, maybe I was tired. So I'm just trying to relate to what possibly people out there are dealing with. I know what was dealing with. So Bob and I got together and we said, okay, let's make some changes. And we said, let's both form new habits. So now that I've done this routine is so positive and so easy for me. I don't get up, number one, with any bad thoughts. I just get up and say it's going to be a good day today and I'm going to get a lot done, do the best that I can. But there's certain things you have to do. I personally, and it works for me, so if you hear anything that you think is going to work for you, that's what you do. But the important things is stay at it as a ritual almost. Every morning other than Sunday, I get out of bed, put my feet on the side, I just breathe deep, take in that day, take in that energy that breath is giving me. Then I really think about deep breathing. I take a few minutes and I do that. That's what I do. Sometimes it's a minute. And a minute's actually a long time. When you're deep breathing, a minute is a long time. So take the minute. Then I have a glass of water next to my bed, a bottle of water. I sit down and I drink that whole bottle of water slowly and as I'm thinking positive thoughts for the day. And just drink the water calmly, think positive thoughts, and then say, okay, I'm ready now to go set the day out.
I wanted to ask you real quick while you're on that. Are you an early riser?
I get up at 6 every day.
Okay, you know, there's studies that show people who are early risers are usually more successful in life, and they actually have more effective things and get them done earlier and quicker because they're up and ready to go.
Well, you know, I see that. I didn't used to get up at 6, but since I've been doing these, I get up, I sit on the side of the bed, I think positive thoughts, start my day with. I drink my water. Then I will go in and try to get ready for my day. Mm-hmm. Then after that, I go up and I make sure that I have my vitamins out. And I have my Boomer Boost drinks already prepared because I prepare them ahead for the whole week. I'm pretty much all done with all of that by 6:30.
Good.
Then I get up and I do exercises. I do push-ups. I do pull-ups. I stretch. I have one of those anti-gravity machines I get on. Mm-hmm. So I do those types of rituals. The important thing is when do you start to do this? You need to start doing this right now. Right now. Start right now. That's how you form a habit. That's how you get disciplined. But I'd like you to start there to form a 28-day habit.
Very good. Thanks, Larry. You know, I can add a couple of other things that might help people to start their day right, which is I agree with the water 100%. You know, there are studies that show that if you drink 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning when you wake up, and you need to lose weight or release weight, you'll lose a pound a month or 12 pounds a year, even if you don't do anything else.
Just by drinking water.
Just by drinking 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning, right? And so the other thing that I like to do, Larry, when I first wake up, similar to you, I have a pulsed electromagnetic field device. And so once I grab my water, I will lie on my PEMF mat for 8 minutes, which helps get your circulation going, which is very helpful for your energy and your overall health. And while I'm doing that, I'll focus on gratitude. So I begin thinking about what I'm grateful for, and I always have the intention that it will culminate in me feeling grateful for being alive. There's something special about getting to the point where you're grateful to be alive that changes, and this is another PEMF thing, your heart muscles actually putting off an electromagnetic field. And if you linger in gratitude and get to the point where you're grateful to be alive, you change that electromagnetic field. Cool. And so that then has a positive effect on other people during the day, because that field goes out a number of feet. And when you're in close presence, like we are here in this podcast room, my field is interacting with yours and affecting it, and vice versa, and the same.
The field from your heart.
Well, it's coming from your heart muscle. And so if you know this, and then you focus on things you're grateful for, you also want to do what's called aspects. So Larry, for you, you know, Zayla, your dog, is something that you're grateful for. But what you want to do is linger in the gratitude, because the longer you linger, the more your field changes.
You want to linger in the gratitude.
You want to linger in the gratitude. And the way you do it is with aspects. So you say, well, what is it that I really love about Zayla? Okay, I love how soft Zayla's fur is. I love her beautiful eyes. I love how she puts her head onto my shoulder where I'm allowed to pet her and talk to her. I love how she's always so excited to see me in the morning, right? So now what you've done by thinking of 4 or 5 aspects of Zayla, you've spent more time in gratitude, okay? And so then you go on to the next thing. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my children. And you want it to lead to, I'm grateful today for being alive. I'm grateful that God gave me this amazing life, and I'm grateful to be alive. Now that grateful to be alive is where all of a sudden now your electromagnetic field begins to change. Okay. And so that's why gratitude is so important. And the other thing that I like to do once my 8 minutes is up with my mat, I like to sit on the edge of the bed and pretend that I'm a child on Christmas morning. Ooh. Now, if you want to get excited about the day,
you know, it's December
that's right.
23rd
That's
right.
Now. So think about it. If every day you sat on the edge of the bed and said, if I was a child, if I was 7 years old again, and it was Christmas morning, how would I be feeling about the day? Right? Now you talk about a anticipation for the future, living from an anticipated positive future, that will get you into that state faster than anything, right?
That's cool.
And so the other thing, Larry, is exercise. Same thing. I do exercises from psychocalisthenics. So I do head circles, right? So I do a head circle, which helps you to calm your mind and be able to get into your heart. So you do this head circle, and people can see this on our YouTube channel, how to do this head circle.
Yeah.
And then when you put your hands across your heart after the head circle and breathe in, you're now entering your consciousness is being relocated into your heart, right? And your heart has neurons, just like your brain is made up of neurons. Your heart has 40,000 neurons in it. So your heart is another brain, right? Then the other thing is the nutrition. So Larry, you and I have very similar nutrition regime, and I make sure that that's part of my morning. And when I do that, I become so well nourished because I have the total health system that I don't really need to eat anything until probably 5 or 6 hours later. We have lunch together quite often during the week. We usually split a small sandwich because we're so well nourished, right? And then the other thing that I do when that part of my routine is done, that's when I plan my day. So I have a professional planner from Brendan Burchard.
Oh, yeah, you were showing me the black one?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a leather-bound one,
Yes.
and it has like 4 columns in it, and it helps you set your spiritual mindset for the day, and who needs you to be on your A game for the day, and you write that down. And if I was to live out my own highest thought for myself today, what would be 2 things I would be sure to do, right? So these are the types of prompts that are in Brendan's planner.
And it's in the book. It
Yeah.
gives you those prompts.
It gives you those prompts, and then it also has a spot to put in things you have to do at certain times, right? So there's a calendar.
Like making a plan for the day.
Yep, and then these are the 3 most important things I have to do. So that's the last part of my routine before I leave the house, is that. And then later on, we can talk a little bit about guided meditation, which I do most every day also, and work with mind movies.
Now, what do you
and
do,
like that.
Bob? For example, I know that people are out there listening going, I don't have time for this.
Well, actually, it's funny that you say that because you're right. There are people, we got a question. It says, when I wake up, it seems like it takes a long time to get going, and I feel like I'm wasting an hour of my day. I don't have a ton of time in the morning, so what are some simple things that I can do to make my morning better? And this comes from Martin in Virginia.
You know, Martin, I'm just wondering what kind of sleep you're getting. That's a lot to do with it. If you're not getting 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of sleep minimum, you could start your day out kind of sluggish. But the routine that we're talking about, if you get on it, you'll start sleeping better also. So when you wake up, you're going to feel better. But just start to do, even if you get up and you're tired, just start to do the things, the simplest things that you can do.
You know, in regard to sleep, it's a very good point. A lot of times if people are groggy in the morning, it's because they woke up in the middle of a sleep cycle. So you sleep in these 1.5-hour cycles, and melatonin is your hormone of sleep, and it rises and falls in your brain in 1.5-hour cycles, and you want to get up when you're at the end of a cycle, because if you wake up in the middle of a cycle, you are going to feel groggy for a long time afterwards. And so, Larry, you mentioned that you don't use an alarm clock. That's why you feel energetic in the morning, because you are allowing yourself to wake up naturally at the bottom of a sleep cycle. So if you have to be up at a certain time, say you have to be up at 6:30 in the morning, okay? You want to go backwards and say, all right, based on this 1.5 hour idea, when would I have to be in bed asleep, okay? Well, the answer is 11 o'clock at night, right?
Okay.
Because if you look at 1.5 hours, at 6:30, that would be 7.5 hours. And that's ideal. And so if you're going to set your alarm for 6:30, you want your plan to be asleep at 11. So if you're going to take, for example, our Good Night Formula, sleep aid, you want to take that at 10 o'clock because it takes about an hour to kick in. And so at 11, you're going to start to feel sleepy. Get to bed, make sure it's very dark in the room, and fall asleep at 11. And if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's probably going to be at the end of a sleep cycle. If you have to get up, use the bathroom, great, but go right back to sleep. People say, well, I can't fall back to sleep. So what do? Concentrate on relaxing your tongue, okay? So because when your tongue is relaxed, it's very hard to stay awake.
Okay.
Do that, go right back to sleep. Alarm goes off at 6:30. You'll feel much better than if you woke up at 6 or if you woke up at 7. In regard to programming your mind to go back to sleep. Depends on what time it is, but what you want to do is backtrack from 6:30. So if you're awake at 5, you want to say, I'm going to sleep for an hour and a half.
Yes.
Right? If you are awake at 3:30, you want to say, I'm going to sleep for 3 more hours. 2 other things we talked about before, Larry, was the water in the morning. If people get into that habit, you'll have more energy in the morning just from drinking the water, but also oxygenate your brain better, right? So the deep breathing exercises, you can do an exercise called arm circles, where you're going to swing your arms in big circles while you take deep breaths in. That will help wake you up in the morning. And then take your nutrition, your full nutrition regime early in the morning. We have a recent testimonial, Raleigh, with a man that talked about how he had very low energy and he was very overweight. Yeah. And he started taking his total health system from Boomers Forever Young in the morning.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, he said that within 5 minutes of taking that drink, his energy came all the way up for the day.
See, and that's important because you got to start the day out. Because if not, like you said, your body, it relies on that nutrition, especially when you start getting into the habit and creating that as part of your morning routine. So, like, I guess what you were saying is some of the quick things that somebody doesn't have a lot of time to do would be making sure you have water on your bedstand. Wake up and drink it, like Larry does in the morning. Take some deep breaths. That doesn't take long. You said it takes about a minute, right? Another thing to get you up and moving, Bob, you just said, is these arm circles. So you just like stand up and do like this type
or
of thing.
Bring your hands in together like this and up and around and back down and like up this. And around on your breath in. So go like this.
Okay, sorry.
And the beauty of that, you're accomplishing 2 things at once.
Yeah.
You're getting your arm circles in and a degree of exercising, and you're breathing.
You know, it's funny you said you got to get disciplined, and I agree that's more easier said than done, but one of the things that we usually share with you guys is the tiny habits, and that gives you a format to help create new habits.
To create highly effective habits.
Right.
And you can incorporate this right into your morning routine.
Right.
So let's talk about that for a second, because it's one thing to talk about what to do here, what to do new, but to make it a habit. So with habits, right, they're from the book Tiny Habits, they have the ABC routine. Right. So the A stands for an anchoring event. So a fancy phrase for meaning something happens. So in this case, this is waking up in the morning. So the A is I woke up in the morning, right? That's going to happen every day. Yep. And so you don't have to worry about it not happening, right? The second thing, the B, is the behavior. So let's start with very simple with the water that we talked about. Yep. Okay, so make sure you have your water at the side of the bed, right? 16 ounces of water, whether it's in a water bottle or whatever, and that becomes the behavior. So you wake up in the morning, I'm choosing to have this behavior, I'm going to drink my water. And then the C is a celebration. And the celebration is very important because this is how human minds work. They tend to repeat things that they celebrate. And this is why you see sports teams making celebrations when they score a touchdown, right? And so your celebration can be something very simple. It could be as simple as, yes, I did it. I got my first day done. I drank my water, and I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And so in this case, creating these habits is that simple. And you can start with one, and then if your next part of your morning routine is going to be focusing on gratitude, right? Then the next day, go ahead and add that in. So your anchoring event is you woke up in the morning. The behavior is I'm going to drink my water and do my focus on gratitude. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to celebrate. Now, you might want to do that for 2, 3, 4 days before you add in another one of your habits, like exercise, right? And then just stack them on top of each other, but always celebrate. And then as you do this over and over again, it's going to become the habit Larry talks about in 21 to 28 days. Right. Now it's going to become the new you. And this is a good thing because the new you is focusing your mind on living from this vision of the future, right? Because you've done all of the routines we're talking about and you've made your plans for the day, and you've made plans that include things related to your own spirit. Remember the question, right? If I was to be the highest version of myself that I could possibly accomplish today, right? What would it be? What would I look like? What would I feel like?
Right.
What kinds of things would I do? How would I treat people, right? Your own highest thought for yourself. This is living from the future, right?
Gotcha.
And so it is very important to add into your routine somewhere to take a moment to say, today, what is my own highest thought for myself? Okay. And that now begins to expand because you like, okay, how do I want to act? I want to act like the best Larry, the best Raleigh, the best Bob. Some people have religion, and so they have some person that they worship, a God that they worship. It's like, how would I be like that? Okay. And so for people with a religion, you can use that to help create your own highest thought for yourself. And so this is how you use tiny habits to anchor these things in. So,
and we could use that. People who are, let's say, some people like to start their day out with a little prayer. That's wonderful.
Yes.
If you want to do that, that is powerful. Now,
especially if they're prayers of gratitude.
Only of gratitude, yes. Not
But it doesn't have to be only, but you don't want to make it right away prayers for asking for things.
Right, you never want to.
You want to start out with prayers of what you're grateful that you already have. Great, and especially grateful to be alive.
Gotcha. You know what I found too? I was just going to mention, you were saying something about it almost, the next morning starts the night before, kind of. Almost like a look at the day before you go to sleep.
Right.
Like review the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is where we can talk about tapping.
Yeah.
So
yes.
for this show that we're doing, tapping, which we've talked about before, also called the emotional freedom technique, this is an opportunity to combine it with another very powerful tool that's called revision scissors. Now, revision scissors came from Neville Goddard, who was a teacher and philosopher and was a very well-known and famous and revered philosopher. And he once said, if the only thing I ever did in my life was leave the world with the technique of revision scissors, I would have fulfilled my life purpose. Cool. That's how powerful he felt this was. And so let's talk about how we do that and when you do it. So when you do this is in the evening time or just before you go to bed. And this is a review of the day. So we've gone to all this trouble to create new habits, to do this new morning routine, set our intention with the highest thought for ourselves, maybe with some details. And we're now sitting at 10 o'clock at night and we're going to make a review. How did I do? Right? So you look back on your day, imagine a timeline of the day with the past being to your left and the future's to your right, and here we are in the middle. You look back and you say, okay, was there a time during the day, beginning with my morning routine and continuing through if I was at work or with friends, whatever, where I did not live up to this highest thought for myself or my plans? Okay. So say, for example, one of your goals is to be patient and treat everyone with compassion today. And you made a slip up during the day. Sometimes it could be a little slip up. Sometimes it can be a disaster. And you want to go back on your timeline. Okay, that was around 10 o'clock in the morning and I got impatient with so-and-so. Okay. So what you're going to do is look at that as if it's a piece on your timeline, almost like the old ribbon of the old movies, right? The reel of the movie. And you know how they used to cut those out and splice them out? Yeah. They used to snip them out and splice in and like that. Okay. Well, that's what you can do. Imagine a pair of scissors and that spot during the day that you didn't like, you're going to imagine that you're cutting it out and that part of the day is dissipating into gas and floating off into the air. And what you're going to do next is come back to the center and say, if I did it perfectly, what would it look like? And so you replay the scenario and you see yourself acting according to your own highest thought. And you make a picture of that, the sounds, what you would have said, the smile on your face, and you bring that picture and you splice that in to your timeline, and that's the revision, right? Mm-hmm. The scissors cut it away, and it was making room for the revision, which is what you made up in your mind and you put there.
The replacement, the highest thought of yourself.
Right. And so the reason this works is your unconscious mind doesn't know that that's not what actually happened, right? Your unconscious mind, once you grab that perfect you and put it in that timeline, your unconscious mind, which is driving 90% of your behavior, goes, that's what I did. So now this is a trick, right? You're tricking your subconscious mind to believe that I actually had this good part of my day. Why do you want to do that? Because you're building a habit. Your unconscious mind goes, wow, we did that right today. We're celebrating, because you want to celebrate when you make the revision.
Right.
Yes, I made the revision. Right, it's part of the habit, and now it's way more likely that the next day you'll actually act like that.
Right.
Right. Now, here's the potentiating factor: use tapping. So when you're done with the revision,
so we've made the revision, we've got our perfect self set,
and
the timeline,
and you celebrated it.
We've celebrated.
Now your unconscious mind thinks that that's what actually happened, and now you're going to anchor it in with tapping.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so now you're going to tap on your fingertips like we showed in the previous episodes, and you're going to repeat a phrase that says something like this. Even though during the day I had this slip up and had to use these revision scissors, I completely love and accept myself anyway. And I'm so grateful now that I realize tomorrow I can have a perfect day and not even need these revision scissors. And I'm feeling at complete peace about the whole thing. Now, cross your hands, cross your heart, and take a deep breath in. Drop your chin down and your hands down and breathe out. And sit quietly. All right? You might even see flashing lights in your visual field. All right? So the reason you're doing that technique at the end is this makes you feel peaceful. You've stated while you're tapping, I'm feeling at complete peace. Now, this is making an association with the actual feeling of peace. Because when you push on your heart, you take a breath in, you have a surge of oxytocin, right? Oxytocin is made both in your brain and in your heart. It's your molecule of love and compassion.
Right.
So now, all of a sudden, you're like, wow, I really am feeling peaceful. And I now have a paired association between feeling peaceful and this beautiful exercise that I just did, and now it becomes the new you.
Nice.
So this is a technique of living from a highly desired future that you're envisioning. So you just altered your future with this exercise because you're way more likely the next day to act how you just created it with your mind.
Wouldn't it be nice if that actually did go back in time and fix it? And in a way it does in your mind, right?
It does in your mind. It does fix it because your unconscious mind thinks you fixed it. And so what it does is, because your intention is to live with a vision for the future,
right?
Okay, your vision for the future just got better because your unconscious mind thinks that you already did it perfectly once. And so it's like, if I did it once, I can do it again.
So it's creating a new,
Exactly.
better reality for
Right.
that.
And so
forming
this
the
is,
habit.
and forming a habit. So
awesome.
this is combining the teachings of Neville Goddard, the teachings of Gary Craig, the teachings of John Caputo in bioenergetic therapy, the teachings of Alexander Lowen, all mixed in together in a technique that people can learn and use.
So that's going to make you feel peaceful, and then that's going to carry forward to the other people.
Larry, thanks for all your insight today. Raleigh, thank you for running the board,
Not a problem.
participating,
My pleasure.
helping us keep things organized. And just in conclusion, I would say if anybody has, any questions for us,
Right.
go to liveforeveryoungradio.com, okay, and communicate with us. There's a form in there where you can communicate with us. And I would just encourage people to focus on the gratitude part, like we said, and linger in gratitude. The longer you linger in gratitude, the better the field responds to you, and the more positive your energetic field becomes. And be sure to say that phrase, if I was to be my own highest thought for myself today, what would it be like? What would it feel like? What would I do?
Thanks for listening to Live Forever Young Radio. Check us out at liveforeveryoungradio.com.